Hi guys, so what I want to look at in this little video is what these functions actually do. So I'm going to look at the sum function, the average, average ifs with an S, SUMIF, SUMIFs, and then I'm going to just quickly point out the subtotal function. What I want to do first of all though is create some named ranges. So what I'm going to do is highlight this table. If I put date there as a title, I don't really need to highlight all of this, but if I just highlight from location across to sort of called rep, I'm going to use these labels to name these columns. Now, to do that, you go to formulas, and in the middle, you've got the name area. So create from selections what I want. When you tick that, it's going to give you two options. I don't want the left row, so that means it would be using leads, derby, etc. to name the rows, and there's duplications there, so you can't have that. Top row, though, use location, item, quantity, etc. to name these columns. Clicking OK to that. And if I just highlight one of the columns, I don't need to do them all. It tells you in the top left hand corner in the name box that it has actually done that. So you can now refer to those. Now what I want to do is use data validation in these boxes just so I can select an item. So data validation is the data tab, and data validation is over in the data tools area. Clicking on that first one, and I'm going to select a list as the option. Now, because I've used a name, I can just type that name in here, equals, first one is location, and then just click OK to that. That should give me a list of the locations, like so. Those are the locations that are in that list. And the next one is going to be the items. So list equals item. OK to that. Check that one. Gives me the 3 courses that's in that list. And this one is the rep, the sales rep equals, oops, data validation first, equals rep. This one, list equals rep. You can also format this as a table as well. You don't have to do it like this, but I quite like doing it like this. There's my 4 salespeople. So now if I just select somebody from each of these, or something from each of these, so go for leads, Excel, Brown. What I want to do is do these functions. Now the first function is just going to be straightforward sum function, but I will then qualify it with the subtotal one. So if I just either type it, or you can go to formulas to select it from there, or home on the right side, you've got the sum function there as well. Or you can go into the wizard and search for it, but I'm just going to type it, equals sum, press your tab key to get the bracket. Now it's asking you to add up the list. I just want to add up this list. Now, if you've got a large list, I mean, this is quite a small list, but if I've got a large list, I can just do Control, Shift, and down arrow, and it will just jump down to the bottom of the list, so I don't have to highlight 10,000 rows, for example. Just a little tip for you there. Clicking the tick, 7,700. If I highlight these figures, down the bottom here, you already reckon that if you like, you've got 7,700, so that is correct. Now, where this is a bit difficult is if you do this. If I go now to the Data tab, and add a filter, or if this was formatted as a table, it would already have the filter on there. Now, if I search for a sales rep, if I get rid of all of those and just put Brown on, that's now changed. That has not changed. That's still showing everybody. So what you have to do is, if I knock that back up, put everybody back on, okay, is you should use the subtotal function if you've got filtered data. Just done a video on this, so equals sub total, that one. And I want the sum function, which is 9. So you need to do sum, comma, and then you select the range. Like so. And again, you can do this shift and control key and down arrow. And it gives you the same figure. I'll just put that into pounds. I've got that up here. Now watch what happens though. If I change that rep to brown again, take that tick off all, pick brown. Okay. So now that's stayed the same, but this one has changed. So that's the one you should be using if you're going to use filtered data. So if I just come off that, show all again, Okay to that. Everybody's back. They're both the same. Now the average, again, the average lives, if I go back to home, because it's one of the more common functions, it's just on the drop down there. But again, if you know it, you can type it. If you don't know it, you can search for it in more functions. You can just type it in there, average, or it might have been the recently used ones. Or you can click on this FX there, it goes to the same place, and you can search for it in there. But if you know it, you can type it. So I'm going to type it equals average, press my tab key to get the bracket, and then I'm just going to select the range. That's what I want the average of, and I'm going to tick that, or you can press enter. So that is now giving me the average, and I'll just check that by highlighting these figures again. It's down the bottom there, you've got average. If I right click on this little bar, you can see you can put other things on there as well. You don't want too much on there though, but that's correct. It's the same number. Now, average if is average but with a qualifier. So now I'm going to type equals average if, pressing tab. So it wants to know what the range is. So I'll just use this person, this list. So look down that list, comma, criteria is going to be whatever I've got in there, comma, if I find it, I want the average of this. And then I'll just tick that, and it comes up with 400. So brown, the average of brown sales in this list is 400. So if I just highlight each of those, use my control key. So there's brown at the top, brown there, brown there. There's just 3 of them, is there? The average down the bottom there says 400, so that's worked. And then if I use my little drop down that I've created, I can change that to somebody else, and then the average will change to reflect that person green. Now, average ifs gives you one criteria, so that was just brown, but average ifs would give you the averages of multiple criteria. So let's have a look at that one. So average range is this range, comma, criteria range 1 so is going to be rep, comma, criteria 1 is going to be that cell, comma, criteria range 2 is going to be this list, comma, which is going to be that. See, it's putting the names in there for me, comma, and the last one, I'll go for location, which should put the word location in there for me, comma, is that. So that's what I want it to look at. I'm clicking the tick. So it's come up with div 0 because there is nobody in there. It selects a town that works. Now it works. So what you could do there, if I put that back to lead for a minute, div 0 puts a lot of people off. If I put an if error function in front of all of that, so if error, press tab. So if all that comes back with an error, which that div 0 is, I want it to say no data in quotes like that. You've got to put in quotes, and I'll close that bracket at the end there. So that says no data now, but if I select something, a different location, try Newcastle, still no data. So Derby's probably the only place. Derby, 600. That's okay. So that's that one. Averages. Next one is SUMIF. So let's type that one. Equals SUMIF tab. So it's asking for the range to look down. So let's go for this. Let's go down this list, comma. So it's put the word item in there for me. I'm going to look for that cell. When I find the item, so when I find Excel in this list, I want to add up the total. So comma, add up the total. Click the tick. And there it goes. No, I didn't name total, but that's okay. That worked okay, 1600. If I change the option there to access, 3,900 for access. Now, that's only one criteria, so I was just looking for access. As with averages, with SUMIFs, with an S, you can add extra criteria. So let's do that one. So equals SUMIFs, pressing tab. So sum range first off, so the range is still the same. Comma, right, criteria. So if this list, comma, is equal to that person, comma, and this list item, comma, is equal to that cell, comma, and then location, the location list, comma, is equal to that. If all three of those are true, add it up. So now that's coming back with a blank. So let's look at some access courses. That was in Newcastle. So go for Newcastle. Still going blank because green didn't do it. Let's go for white. Then we get some information. Again, you could put an if error in front of that as well to put some of the narrative if you don't want it to be blank. But that's just a little video of how you can utilize some of the more common functions in Excel. So we've looked at the sum function, the average, average ifs, SUMIF, SUMIFS, and also the subtotal function. We've covered how to do named ranges, how to do data validation as well. So hopefully the information I've shared with you there is of use. Thank you for your time. I'll catch you in the next one.